I can introduce you to
Yes,
Sumi.
please do.
Hi everyone, my name is Sumi Shan. I'm one of the co-founders for Dunya Habitat. So my brother and I are from a farming family from Sri Lanka, and we actually decided to come up with this because we were looking at food security, climate change, how do we really strengthen local food systems, and really coming from a smallholder farming family, we wanted to be able to give back the power of growing into our local hands. So as Paul mentioned, we've been talking to Paul and Scott and the extended family for some time. We were part of Queen's University's startup program as well. So that's kind of our connections to Kingston. The unit's actually manufactured in Kingston with a manufacturing partner here. And then the aim is to be able to ensure that we're providing year-round growing. So you're able to provide fresh, nutritious, accessible produce 365 days a year with no pesticides and minimal amount of land and water usage. It's a complementary process to local farming. It's not meant to overtake, but especially when it comes to the fact that we are a very seasonal growing system here. So we really wanted to be able to provide that opportunity, also give us the opportunity to grow more of our produce here rather than having to ship it from south of the border where, it takes weeks on end. So we have accessible fresh produce within a day's end, right? So that was part of the whole sort of ecosystem. We are a very mission-driven company, very social impact-driven. So we love working with community organizations that are looking at food security, accessibility. We also volunteer with the South Asian Autism Center in Toronto, and so it really, the extended family sort of vision and mission really resonated with us, and the collaboration, and it took us a while, a lot of conversations as we were growing, but we're very excited. This is our first fully commercial unit. We had a pilot with a Kingston farmer over the last year, and so Paul really wanted to be the first one. So extended family is the first commercial unit. Of course, we're optimizing hydroponic growing. That's not new to us. Yeah, okay. So it is using water. This unit particularly, it's a vertical farming unit. Okay. Right now, I believe we have red romaine lettuce in it, but we love the collaboration, being able to build a unit and then help teach and learn as we're going with our partners as well. So it's a very collaborative process, this one. I'll let Barb kind of talk a little bit more about what they're doing with that particular unit.
This sweet little cocoa peat had a seed put in it, and then it was in a little tiny plug tray, and it was grown on a little seedling grow shelf. So it wasn't in this unit in the first 10 days of its life. And then we actually had a team of volunteers from Pathways to Education.
Great.
And ISKA.
They're one of our groups.
Yeah. ISKA and Pathways to Education sent out around 12 of their youth, and they helped us to plant 3 walls.
Good.
In there, and they learned a lot about hydroponics. In fact, one of them said it was the best Pathways event she'd ever attended. Yay. And another said she wants to go into agriculture as a career now. So that's pretty exciting. And then the next day, we actually brought it in because everyone in programs was so curious about it, about this unit, and they had all these questions. So we had them plant 1 wall so they could all engage with it. And we had one participant say, I could do this all day long. It's so relaxing. I'm sure so many of you are gardeners, and just spending a day with plants and seeds, and just doing something that's soothing, repetitive, relaxing.
That's my stress reliever.
It's a total stress relief. So people in programs really enjoyed it, just gathering in the kitchen. It was a social activity. And in the future, we hope to have more social opportunities for different groups to come together and meet each other while doing some activities like this that are very relaxing. So now that we've planted these, we actually had them transplant them into these net pots, and then come in groups of 2 and plunk them all into these vertical towers. And in the vertical towers, you've all seen that there is water. So this is called a recirculating drip system. And what that means is that there's nutrient water, and it's being pumped up and then sent out through these drip emitters that are up at the top. And those drip emitters up at the top, it's just the same thing as a drip irrigation system that I'm sure many of you are familiar with in your gardens or that you've seen in other commercial operations. And they can be adjusted so that we can change the amount of water, that nutrient water that is being provided to each of the tubes of plants. So each of these are separate tanks. Each wall has its own tank, which means if there is a plant disease that's introduced, say, because plant diseases move through the air, and they also move through our fingers. So if something is introduced and it hits one wall, we can always drain out that one wall and the rest of it won't be impacted.
Oh, interesting.
So it's really risk-proof.
Yeah.
Like that's something that's really important to call, is just that idea of like being climate resilient, being risk-proof, just being as safe as we can so that we can provide as much food as we can to the community. So in this recirculating drip system, the nutrients will drip down through the tubes and they'll hit every one of those cocoa peat sponges and then go down into the tank and go back up and around. So there's very little water being used actually to grow these plants and very little electricity. The lights are on a timer from 8 p.m. until 8 a.m. Because they're outside, we can actually have them on a flipped cycle. So we're using less energy and peak times on the grid, which is good for our grid, and it also costs us a little bit less too. So that's the basics of the hydroponics. After 2 weeks of being in here, we're going to trim the roots because otherwise they'll be hard to pull out because they'll get really big, drinking up all that nutrient. And then in another week, we can even start harvesting every second lettuce and then let the other one size up and get really big. So we'll be growing 1,200 lettuce in this unit.
For how long?
It takes about 30 to 40 days, depending on how big we want the lettuce.